Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Welcome to Congregation Beit Tikva. We have a beautiful Shabbat service for everyone. Hope you will join us, read with us, sing with us. Thank you to Jolene on the piano and Wendy Dankoff playing flute and clarinet, and Lela, who is recording for us this Sabbath evening. So we begin with a nigun, and take it away, Wendy. We're on 654, all the way towards the back of the Siddur, page 654, the second psalm. From the top, Erev Shoshanim, the evening of the roses. A gorgeous melody, a very popular melody in the land of Israel. Let's turn now to the blessing for the Shabbat lights. We're on 121 in the English, on page 121. And we'll read together, and then you'll kindle the Sabbath lights at home. O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives. Bless all who enter the sanctuary in need, all who bring the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadliknei. Let's turn to page 126 for a meditation before we enter into the realm of the Psalms for Kabbalat Shabbat. Page 126. I begin with a prayer of gratitude for all that is holy in my life. God needs no words, no English or Hebrew, no semantics and no services, but I need them. Through prayer I can sense my inner strength, my inner purpose, my inner joy, my capacity to love. As I reach upward in prayer, I sense these qualities in my Creator. To love God is to love each other, to work to make our lives better. To love God is to love the world God created, and to work to perfect it. To love God is to love dreams of peace and joy that illumine all of us, and to bring that vision to life. So we skip ahead in our prayer book and we come to Psalm 95, which is the opening psalm for Shabbat evening on page 130. Psalm 95, known as Lechuna Ranana. Together, bottom of the page on 130. Come, let us sing joyously to Adonai. Raise a shout for our rock and deliverer. Let us come into God's presence with praise. Let us raise a shout for God in song. For Adonai is a great God, the great ruler of all divine beings. In God's hand are the depths of the earth. The peaks of the mountains are God's. God's is the sea, God made it, and the land which God's hands fashioned. Come, let us bow down and kneel, bend the knee before Adonai, our Maker. For Adonai is our God, and we are the people God tends, the flock in God's care.
Oh, if you would but heed God's charge this day.
And let's continue, we'll read in the middle of page 133, an excerpt from Psalm 98 on 133. A psalm, sing to Adonai a new song, for God has worked wonders. God's right hand, God's holy arm has won God's victory. Adonai has manifested God's victory, has displayed God's triumph in the sight of the nations. God was mindful of God's steadfast love and faithfulness towards the house of Israel. All the ends of the earth beheld the victory of our God. Raise a shout to Adonai, all the earth. Break into joyous songs of praise. So we come to the beautiful melody of Lecha Dodi. We're on page 138. And we're singing, as we always do, the first verse, second, and then if you want, take a look on the bottom of 139, we all rise to sing Boi Vishalom, the ninth verse. Shabbat nekabela, lechadodi lekrakala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Oi v'shalom b'teret ha'olam, gam b'simcha u'b'tzahara, tochenu b'nam sgula, boi chala boi ala, lecha dodi lekrakala, Shabbat nekabela, lecha dodi lekrakala, Shabbat nekabela. Let's read a portion of Psalm 95. We're on page 141. 141. Adonai is sovereign, God is robed in grandeur, Adonai is robed, God is girded with strength. The world stands firm, it cannot be shaken. Your throne stands firm from of old, from eternity you have existed. The ocean sounds Adonai, the ocean sounds to thunder, the ocean sounds its pounding above the thunder of the mighty waters.
More majestic
Than the breakers of the sea is Adonai majestic on high. Your decrees are indeed enduring. Holiness befits your house, Adonai, for all times. So we turn to the words of the Chatzi Kaddish, the half Kaddish. We're on page 144. This mantra, this prayer in Aramaic, is really a long series of synonyms of praise to the Holy One. Blessed be God. And we'll sing it together on 144. Yitkada v'yitkada shemei Rabba, Yamadi Rakute Yamlich Machute, Mechayechot Ruv Yomechot, Ruchayechot Beit Yisrael, Agala, Agala, Uvizman Karim, Imru, Amen. Eshmei Rabba Mevora, Be'olam Me'omel Maya, Yibarach, Yibarach, V'yishtabah, Yibar B'tromam V'naseh, V'yitadar, V'yitaleh, V'yitalam, Shemei Kedusha Brichu, Lela Minko Birchata, V'shirata, Tushbechata, V'nechemata, Damiran B'yama, Imru, Amen. Please turn the page together. We lift our voices. We're singing the Baruch Hu, the call to worship. We're on 146. Baruch Hu et Adonai Amvorach, Baruch Adonai Amvorach, Le'olam Vaed. And we turn again. We're on 148, the first blessing, known as Mariv Aravim, God who brings the evening brings the evening to us. In other words, allows us to begin the Sabbath prayers together in English on 148. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tsevaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on the evening. Baruch atah Adonai, Hamariv Aravim. The second blessing, giving thanks to God for the gift of Torah and Jewish learning and wisdom. Page 150. Everlasting love you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Together we sing the Shema. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kavod, Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Let's all be seated, be comfortable. We continue with the words from Deuteronomy. We're on page 154. We're reading together the V'ahavta. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavecha v'chol nafshecha v'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha u'v'lechtecha b'derech u'v'shachbecha u'v'kumecha u'kshartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot bein enecha u'ktabtam al mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha L'man tizkaru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'yitem kedoshim le'Elohechem Ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'Elohim Ani Adonai Elohechem emet. You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Take to heart these instructions with which I charge you this day. Impress them upon your children. Recite them when you stay at home and when you are away, when you lie down and when you get up. Bind them as a sign on your hand, and let them serve as a symbol on your forehead. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Thus you shall remember to observe all my commandments and to be holy to your God. I am Adonai your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am Adonai your God. Adonai Elohechem emet. So let's read together. We're on 159 before we come to the Mi Chamocha. Sing the song of men and women joined in understanding and respect, the song of God's miracles, an earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and the generations to come. The song of a land once ravished by war, now quiet and content, her soldiers home to leave no more. The song of a world redeemed, the song of peace. We're singing together, we're on page 158. No So we turn the page to the beautiful blessing, the Hashkivenu, asking God to watch over us, protect us, shelter us, especially to watch over us this time of illness and pandemic, and to lift up our spirits, deliver us, because God is a gracious and merciful Lord. Wendy is going to give us a beautiful solo for Hashkivenu. We're on 161. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai hapores sukat shalom aleinu v'al kol amo Yisrael v'al Yerushalayim. So let's continue with some more great music. We're singing Yismechu. Yismechu means to be delightful, or to call the Sabbath a delight. It's a future tense of the verb samach. Okay, we're in the middle of page 162. Yismechu b'malchutecha.
Starting the wrong key. Shomre,
we come to the 7 basic essential blessings of the Sabbath service called the Tefillah. Tefillah means prayer. And we begin on 164. We always sing a brief introduction, words from Psalm 51. If you're comfortable, please stand up and sing with us. We go from 164 to 166, the first and second blessings on 168, and then we'll continue in English. Adonai sifatai tiftachu fi yagid hilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imakeinu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor V'Gamra, Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Kolei Hakol, V'Zocher Chesed Avot V'Imahot, U'Mevii Gula Livnei Bneihem, L'man Shemo Yahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Abraham, Ezra Sarah, Atah Gibor Elam Adonai, Mechayei HaKol atah Rabbi Hoshia, Mechakel Chaim Bechesed, Mechayei HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Tzomech Noflim V'Rofei Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato, Lishenei Ava, Michamocha Lau Gevurot, Umidom Elach, Melech Nemit, Umechayeh, Umasmiya Yeshua, V'ne'emonata v'chayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh hakol. Let's read together on 171. The days pass and the years vanish, and we walk sightless among miracles. God, fill our eyes with seeing and our minds with knowing. Let there be moments when your presence, like lightning, illumines the darkness in which we walk. Help us to see wherever we gaze that the bush burns unconsumed, and we, clay touched by God, will reach out for holiness and exclaim in wonder, how filled with awe is this place, and we did not know it. Baruch atah Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh. Blessed is the Eternal One, the Holy God. Together on 173. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat. And the words of the Ritzeh, top of page 175. Ever-present one, may we, your people Israel, be worthy in our deeds and our prayers. Wherever we live, wherever we seek you, in this land, in Zion restored, in all lands. You are our God, whom alone we serve in reverence. Baruch atah Adonai, shotcha levadcha v'yira na'avod. the blessing of Thanksgiving, the Modim. We're on top of page 177. God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of soul, our light within, for the world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth, which day by day sustains us. For all these and more, we offer thanks. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulecha na'eh lehodot. So we turn the page. We're singing Shalom Rav, the seventh blessing, page 178. Let's take a few moments for our own personal prayers.
May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable
this time in our service, we want to think of our loved ones, our family members, friends of the congregation, all those who share our common heritage. And we want to lift up their spirits, their physical and emotional, their spiritual essence tonight, so that hopefully everyone will be strong and healthy and have truly a refuat nefesh, refuat guf, a healing of the soul and a healing of the body. So we remember this Shabbat, some of our congregants who need strength and healing: Arlene Vinnick, Doreen Herdig, Lynn Kelly, Flo Vinnick, as well as dear friends Bonnie Cantor, Eliodoro Herrera, Helen Fine, and if we have some other friends or family members.
Cynthia Dutton.
Cynthia Dutton. So think of your loved ones and your family and friends throughout the country and across the world. Let's sing together. We're on page 371. Page 371. Mishaberach. So, my friends, we begin the story of Shemot, the story of Exodus, the second book of the Hebrew Bible. And it begins, it's called Shemot. The Torah portion is called Shemot, which means names. The Hebrew title of the book is names as well. Exodus comes from the Greek and the Latin. So what is this all about? This first parsha is 6 chapters, a lot of Torah compressed into a few chapters. In fact, after the first chapter, which tells us about Joseph's family and the descendants of Jacob having come into the land of Egypt, procreating, becoming more and more numerous, the new Pharaoh forgets about Joseph. We are suddenly enslaved in what's known as corvée labor. It's what you and I would call indentured servitude. But the biblical author has to compress literally hundreds of years of Hebrew Jewish history into one chapter. So what happens is in chapter 2, Moses is born, the future hero, the future savior, right? He's remarkably saved from death in the Nile. He grows up in Pharaoh's court. He kills an Egyptian taskmaster. He's banished from the court. He goes south along the Nile River tributaries. He finds a wonderful Midianite priest named Jethro, who ultimately will become his father-in-law. And in all of that, we are, so to speak, reading into the story 400 years of Jewish servitude. All of this happens literally in a chapter and a half. And then in chapter 3, we have this extraordinary experience often called the Theophany. In other words, God appears to Moses. How does he appear? So that's what I want to talk with you about today. What does it mean for God to somehow, in reality or in our sense of existential experience, how do we understand God's presence in a place, in a physical place? Every place is not the same, right? You and I know that one place or another, one home, one sanctuary is not the same as another. When we go to Bryce or Zion Canyon, we have a certain awesome experience, so to speak, of the staggering beauty of that canyon. If you're in Temple Emmanuel in New York City and you look to your left or your right, you'll see the magnificent stained glass windows of that extraordinary synagogue. That's a different kind of sacred space. Or even if you're just in your own home, in your own library or place of study, there's another feeling of space in that place. Why is it that spaces can be both mundane and sometimes they can be holy? The Torah explains this in kind of elusive, ephemeral language. What happens is, as I said, Moses ran away from his home palace. He had to get away because he committed a homicide, okay? And he's taken in by Jethro, a patriarch. And Jethro sends him out to be a shepherd. Jewish leaders, somehow, most Jewish leaders at some point in their lives work as a shepherd. A shepherd is a metaphor for being a servant of the Lord. And a shepherd also, obviously, is a metaphor for taking care of other human beings, if not animals. So he's out there shepherding his flock. He approaches a mountain. He sees a strange phenomenon. Some kind of bush, some kind of natural growth that's burning up, but it doesn't look like it's being destroyed. It's not being consumed. He approaches the flame, and then he hears this divine voice. Do not come closer. Remove your sandals from off your feet, for the place you stand on is holy ground. So now we have to ask, why is the ground holy? Is it just because he heard this booming baritone voice coming out of heaven? Or is there actually something unique about that particular space? And from whence does that uniqueness derive? The rabbis ask, what makes a place a holy place, as opposed to being in your kitchen when you're making breakfast, right? Saadia Gaon in the late 800s said that holiness is not the result of what we do. It's not about how we do this ritual or that ritual, how we celebrate Sabbath or so forth and so on. Saadia says God made the place holy. In other words, the transcendent, invisible presence of the divine rendered that spot to be a holy place. The sanctity of it comes not from Moses or what Moses is really doing, it really comes from the divine, right? Otherwise, it's just another piece of real estate on the side of a mountain. Similarly, Nachmanides, who lived 2 or 3 centuries later, says, even though this site where the burning bush was is distant, take care with it because the descent of God's presence sanctifies the whole mountain. It wasn't just that this unbelievable bush that kept burning and burning. I remember a scientist once telling me 20 years ago, there were some natural gas jets in that part of the desert, and they were just flaming up with, methane gas, and suddenly it exploded, and that's why there's a burning bush. A typical, empirical observation. But Nachmanides isn't into that kind of science. He's saying God's presence somehow enveloped the whole mountain. And other great Jewish commentators say the same thing. In other words, in every instance where God's presence is perceived by us, it is a sign that something amazing is going to happen. Maimonides says it's a sign that future prophecy will follow, that the person who is experiencing this will have his or her own prophetic experience. So I'm talking about space. I'm talking about physical space. I want to make a distinction here that's important in Jewish thinking. You and I rarely look in the Bible and say, oh, that place is sacred, everybody should run there and make a shrine to it, right? We don't know where the burning bush is. We don't know where Moses was buried. There's no description of where Moses is actually buried in the Torah. The rabbis say, we don't need to consecrate ground. We don't need to consecrate physical places. Rather, we should give our heart and our souls to the time that we experience when we go through a God awesome experience. So what I'm saying is, Rabbi Heschel, Abraham Heschel, whose yard site was observed last week, Rabbi Heschel once said, Judaism is a religion of holiness in time. We don't worship, we don't worship spaces. We're not gaga about cathedrals. We like to have a beautiful sanctuary, yes, but the most important thing is not to go worship at a particular synagogue in New York or LA or Boston. More importantly, we take the time frame that God gives us, like the 24 hours of the Sabbath, and we make that holy. We do something special with it. We sort of focus our energy, we consecrate our mind and our stomachs to doing Shabbos things, like studying, like praying, like eating, like sleeping. Those are all important activities, and they come within the within the realm, the domain of the holiness of Sabbath time. So even though I'm trying to explain what this holy space is out there in the desert, what I really want you to remember is Sabbath is not about if you're in this building or that. It's about how you understand and make that Sabbath day special. By the way, in 1977, I was in the Sinai with my fellow rabbinic students, and we went to Santa Catarina, the great St. Catherine's Monastery in the middle of the desert, which is supposed to be, was built in the 1100s at the foot of Mount Sinai. Of course, nobody's quite sure which one is Mount Sinai. The amazing experience is, well, climbing Mount Sinai for me as a young kid then was something very special. But more important, the monks at Santa Catarina designated a certain bush outside of the walls of the monastery as the burning bush. They even had postcards that they had printed up to sell to us unwitting young rabbinic students that we could take home and show everyone where the real burning bush was. To me, it was unbelievable, but they believed it. They believed that that little tree that had been growing for what they said was the last 600 or 700 years was the remnants or the essence of the burning bush. And it just reminded me of how important it is to remember that things and physical spaces are not so important. More importantly is what we do with our time and the essence of our life. I'm sure the monks are still there, some 40 years later, convincing new tourists and students that this is the burning bush of the Bible. So remember, Moses experienced the place as sacred because he, in his own way, understood that God's presence was with him. And you and I, stand in a sacred place when we're aware of our lofty potential, when we're aware of our Jewish soul, which links us to something that is greater than ourselves. Shabbat Shalom. So join us this week. We have a special program, I believe, Wednesday evening, right? Wednesday at 7 o'clock on Zoom is the presentation by our dear friend Linda Goff on Rabbi Hellman, our founding rabbi. Some of his writings is historical papers. Linda's going to do a whole kind of scenario of what Rabbi Hellman was working on as both a rabbi, as an attorney, as a thinker here in Santa Fe for more than 40 years. That's Wednesday evening. Tomorrow morning we have Torah study. Tune in on your Zoom at 9:25 or 9:30. And Any other special things happening, Wendy?
Cantor Ephraim next week.
Yes, our dear Cantor Ephraim Herrera, will be singing next Shabbat. So please join us. We'll look forward to that. Thank you again to Jolene, Wendy, Lela for a beautiful service. So our closing prayers are on page 586. And if you're able, please stand up and we'll sing the Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach Adon hakol, v'teilah b'yoter breshit, shelo atzanu k'goyei haratzon, v'lo samanu k'mishachot adama, shelo samkeinu kahem, v'goon aleinu k'chol amonam, v'anachnu korim, Umishachamim umodim libin melech malchei halachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'nemar v'haya Adonai lemelech ol kol haaretz v'yom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. I'm on the bottom of 597. Our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends have lost, and the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to us. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. During this month of mourning, we recall our dear friend, Kay Fowler, leader of our choir and leader in so many ways of our sanctuary during the past 20 some odd years. During this period of Shiva, the 7 days of intensive mourning, we recall now Esther Thaler, dear cousin of Larry Cohen, Dr. Larry Cohen and Marilyn Cohen. Esther is a resident of Los Angeles and just lost her life because of the COVID virus. And we extend our condolences to Larry and Marilyn. And we remember also during Shiva, James McNeil, dear friend of mine, who also died of COVID. On this, their yahrzeit memorial, with love and devotion, we now remember Sam Bickle, father-in-law of Sheila, Harold Meyer Bear, father of Jean O'Gorman, Bella Susser Blyman, mother of Marcia Bierman, Joan Fleetwood, a friend of Marilyn Cohen, Harry Grossman, the father of Melanie Hornstein, Blossom Feingold Levy, my mother, Shana Rosenberg, daughter of Stuart and Connie Rosenberg, Fanny Jane Satterthwaite, the mother of Michelle Goldman, B. Shulman, longtime member of our congregation, Rochelle Simon, mother of Davida Simon, and also remembered by Josefo Martinez, and a longtime founding member of our congregation, Irma Thaler, mother of Nancy Thaler and Audrey Deschenedides. So please join me for the Kaddish. The words are on page 598, 598. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'yamad yivrach hiroteh, v'yamlich malchuteh, B'chayechon v'yomechon u'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael b'gala b'zman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbi Morach le'olam almei amaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei d'kudsha b'richu Lela min kol birchata b'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata Damiran bi'alma v'imru Amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. The words for the Kiddush are on page 123. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei b'riah gafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratza banu Shabbat kasho v'ahava u'ratzon inchilanu Zikaron lemase bereshit Ihu yom techila lemikrae kodesh Zecher l'tziyat Mitzrayim Kivanu achata Gatanu kidashra Mikol amin Shabbat shalom, everyone. Good Shabbos.